So now I'm confused. No, 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 no. Okay, one second. Um, do you see bottom of 735 or 736? 736.
We talked about the hidden world and the revealed world.
Right, right. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Sorry. Let's go back to the bottom of 735. So it's going to be the 16th ER or a leap year 14th ER.
16.
Yeah, leap year 14th ER. Okay.
Okay.
So I want to revisit this point because this is a very important. I don't want to say dangerous. It can't. Well, just like you have nuclear power, something that is so powerful can also become so dangerous. The more powerful something is spiritually, the more dangerous it can be when used for the opposite of positivity, of positive. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've been talking about tzimtzum, that God removed himself from a certain area, space, in order to make space for a world to exist. But then last week, we introduced the fact, or we spoke about the fact that this tzimtzum, this contraction, is not literal. It's just figurative, or not even figurative. It's just from our perspective. It's an illusion that to us seems like a contraction, but isn't really a contraction, right? And that's why there are two terms that we use to refer to the infinite light of Hashem. One is the light that fills the worlds, and one is the light that surrounds the world. The light that fills the world is the light that you observe. Which light of God do you observe? Which light of God does a human being observe in this world? Well, it's a light that doesn't look like God, it looks like nature. So when you look at a tree, or you look at a cloud, or you look at nature, and your conclusion is like Abraham's, there must be a God that's making all of this work because it can't just be random, it can't just be an accident. So you see God, but you don't see God. What do you see? You see nature. But your mind sees that that can't be the only thing. There must be something animating this in the inside. There must be a divine power here. That divine power we call the light that fills the world because it's something we can see. Again, we can't see it physically, but it can get into this thick skull. My human brain can see the divine light in the tree because it grows, it lives. How does it live without an animating force? But then there is the light that surrounds the world. What does it mean surrounding? Not that it literally is outside the world, but it's beyond my I can't tap into it. Like we discussed last time, like the radio waves or the the waves that are in, but you need to have a vessel to capture those waves that the human mind, the human body isn't an appropriate vessel to capture it, to absorb it. Yeah. So we call it the light that surrounds the world, but really it's here. It's just because it doesn't penetrate it to the extent that I can observe it. It's called Sovev Kol Almin, the light that surrounds the world. So it turns out that although when you look at the world, it seems like there is something separate from God, something that is independent of God, there's a world. Ultimately, it's all really part of God.
Mhm.
And therefore, God is everything. God is everything, everything is God. Now, here's where the danger comes in. You say that, and you say, well, everything is God. That means I have divine power. I can do whatever I want. No. That's like the electric toothbrush saying that I have a battery inside of me. Therefore, the only way I can operate is with the battery. Therefore, I'm really the electric from the battery. Therefore, I'm the battery. No, you take the battery out and you stop being an electric toothbrush. You're now, again, a piece of plastic. Yeah. But with God animates, not just animates, God brings the tree into existence. Without God, there is no tree. Call it whatever you want. The animating, the soul of the tree is the tree. Without the force that allows this tree to come into existence, the tree would be a rotten seed in the ground. So its whole existence is the force of life that's in it. What should this, if we look at the world this way, what should it do to us? If we look at the world and we come to the conclusion, regardless of what we encounter, where we are, who we see, what happens, if our conclusion is that everything is really just an extension of God, everything is part of God's will, everything here is the way exact way it's meant to be from God, what should that do to us? What conclusion should that bring us to? For many people, I don't know if someone has something they want to say. For many people, it brings to the question, how it brings to a rejection of God. What are you going to tell me that God is in the hospital within in the pediatric ward in the hospital? That can't be, right? Or the logical, in my mind, that's not the logical conclusion. The logical conclusion is, I must not get what's really going on here. The thought that came to me this morning was, and honestly, I've never experienced this myself, but I've heard about it, so I hope this is a good metaphor. Have you ever experienced an escape room? Have you ever heard of an escape room?
Yeah.
Escape room. An escape room. You've never even heard of it. Okay, so you've heard of it. None of us have experienced it. So we're all sitting here talking, or hopefully thinking theoretically. Okay, so just for clarification, I believe an escape room is basically where you're put in with a few people into a room, and there seems to be no way out. And you have to, there's different clues or different things that if you work together as a team, you could figure out how to get out. It more or less, is that how you guys understand what an escape room is? Okay. And I imagine, again,
But no worries, because you'll get out anyway after an hour.
oh, so because you only paid for an hour. If you give them a credit card, you never know if they'll let you out, right? So, and I because I've never been to one, I've never even really researched it. I could be exaggerating now. If I am, maybe you could take this and turn it into a business model, but I imagine there are different levels of escape room and different tiers that, the more difficult it is, the more challenging it is. It could be it even costs more money to do it, and it's more gratifying when you actually get through it. But let's think about this for a half a second. If someone took you and stuck you into an escape room, but didn't tell you it was an escape room, but they also didn't charge you, what would happen the minute the door locked behind you and you realize there's no way out? Panic.
Yeah.
What do you do the minute you get out?
Relief.
You call the cops and you say, someone kidnapped me, right? But wait a second. The same, an hour before you came in here, people came and paid hundreds of dollars to be locked in this room. And they look at the video, look at the recording of them in this room. They had a blast. They thought we're coming back here next time. So why did you panic and call the cops the minute you got out? And they had fun. It's all in the mind. You had no idea this was here for your entertainment. So you perceived the lack of door handles, the lack of door frames or windows or keys or access points. You perceived that as a net negative. Whereas the people that came in here knowing what they were getting themselves into, they paid for that. There was once not once, but I mean, he's not alive anymore, but he was a Chabad rabbi. There was a family, a Chabad family that moved to America, came to America I think they came in the teens or the 20s. And so when the previous Rebbe came to America, the family was already well established. And one of the sons was a rabbi in a congregation in Newark, New Jersey. And so he came once to the previous Rebbe and he had a complaint. He's been rabbi in this congregation for I don't know how long, and he's been speaking about Shabbos, about kosher, about, and it seems to be falling on deaf ears. And he's seeing no movement in the community towards closer to Hashem. He doesn't know what he's doing wrong. What does he need to do? So the previous Rebbe told him that there's something called a schwitz. You know what a schwitz is?
Bathhouse.
So it's more than a bathhouse, I think. No, a schwitz is a place, a steam room. What's a steam room in the bathhouse? You'd go in, and someone would be there with a bundle of branches. You'd sit in there and get all sweaty, and then they'd whip you with these branches on you have to open up your pores to open your skin. People pay money to go into a room to get whipped. Now the previous Rebbe asks him, now imagine walking down the street and someone came over to you with this bundle of branches and starts whipping you in the street. What are you going to do? You think they're crazy, right? You charge them with battery. What's the difference? Why here you're paying people to do this deal, and here you think the guy's crazy? Rebbe said, because in the schwitz, you don't come in and right away start whipping. First, you take off your clothing. Then you come in, you sit on the first level. Once you're warmed up a little, move up to the second level. You warm up a little more, you go to the highest level, right? And that's the schwitz has like different levels of benches where, the top, there's more steam on the top, it's hotter there. So you go up, when you're on the top and you're totally warmed up and totally removed of all external separations, then you understand what the whipping is about. It's there to open you up. It's there the person's doing it out of love. But when you walk over to someone on the street and you start whipping them, there's no love there. He was telling him, basically, when you're trying to influence someone, when you're trying to teach someone, you have to first warm things up. You have to open up a conduit of some sort of a relationship that then eventually the person says, whip me with that, and pays you to do it. And the same thing here. If we can adapt this type of mindset, this understanding that no matter what I encounter, no matter what I see, no matter what happens to me, no matter what I hear happens in the world, it's all literally God happening. So then not only do I stop worrying, now I'm okay. Even if what does the matter? Even if the blade of the sword is placed on his neck, he still calls out to God. Why? Because who's placing the blade of the sword on your neck? Not the monster that thinks he wants to take your life, but God's placing it there. And so who do you turn to? Now, this sounds blissful. So if we can take Tzimtzum, if we can realize, okay, I don't see God in the world because God contracted himself, at least for my glasses, God contracted himself, I can't see him. But if I know he's there, even though I can't see him, now I'm good. But what happened as a result of that contraction? At the end of the day, what do I see and perceive in the world? I see darkness. I have to work hard to see God in the tree because that's not the first thing that comes to mind when I walk outside. First thing comes to mind when I walk outside is that the squirrels ate my car again, and now I can't drive it. Yeah, if I spent 5 minutes, I'd realize the squirrel's also God's creation, and God wouldn't allow it to destroy my car if there was no if I didn't it wasn't supposed to happen to me. But the first thing I see, what like Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev once complained to God. He said, God, you put the mitzvahs in a book and you stuck everything that's tempting and everything that you don't want in front of our eyes. And then you reverse it. Put the sins in the book, put all the mitzvahs right in front of us, and then see how it'll. Yeah. You got to be reasonable. Tzimtzum, once we understand Tzimtzum, we can understand how everything is good and everything is godly. But that's not the default. The default observation that I have in the world is this isn't good, right? So this is exactly why we're here. This is the reason we were placed in this world. We were placed in this world to fight this struggle, this duality. When I get into my head, the obvious conclusion I come to, if I'm a descendant of Abraham, whether biologically or theologically, the obvious conclusion I come to is there's got to be some force doing all of this. It can't just be random. That was Abraham's conclusion, right? Abraham didn't meet God till he was 75 years old. But for the first 40 years or so that he was preaching God, he saw God the same way we do. He didn't have any previews that eventually God spoke to him. Fine. You can't compare yourself to Abraham after God's, but for the first couple decades that he was literally risking his life teaching people about God, he was just like me and you, a regular person. But in his mind, it didn't make sense, a world that has no operator, a world that has no creator and originator. And once you come to that conclusion logically, there are no worries anymore. He's not worried about a furnace, Nimrod throwing him into a furnace. He's not worried about the four mightiest kings in the area that just defeated 5 kings. He's going to go to battle if he thinks this is the right thing to do, because he's got God on his side. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's just what makes sense. It doesn't make sense any other way. The fact that that's not strong enough for us to say, okay, so now all the other things that seem obvious and all the other temptations that I gravitate towards, if I'm not going to use my head to control myself, what am I more than an animal? If I'm going to say, okay, I know that in my head, but in my heart, this is what I want to do. This is what seems tempting to me to do. This is what, then why am I different than an animal? What makes me better than an animal? I'm following my heart. This is what we know. The animal soul is primarily the heart. And this is the purpose. So ultimately, this is the purpose that God created us, humans in this world. And this is why God created the world. Remember, God created humans last because usually that's the last thing that goes into the building. The last thing that goes into whatever it is you're creating is the main thing, right? You want first everything to be ready for the main event to happen. So the fact that God created humans last shows that the whole purpose of creation was for the human being. To do what? To experience God within this seemingly ungodly world. And if we think about it, this is what we do when we have children, when we start a family. Why do you get married? You have a job, you're living good. Why complicate it? Why complicate it with a marriage and with kids? Now, some will say companionship, because I want to live with someone. Yeah. That can't be the only reason. You know why? You already have people you get along with. Your parents, your siblings, your friends. Live with them. Physical companionship, intimate companionship. Sometimes you can have it easier without marriage. So why do you get married and then stick with it? Because there's a deeper human desire that you don't necessarily see every day, and that is to create, to be creative, to do something that you didn't think was possible, or that you didn't expect of yourself. You want to be wowed. You want color. You want to be excited. That comes from something that's unexpected. God created us in his image. This is what God wants. God wants the unexpected. God wants to see human beings flapping their wings, trying to treading water. Treading water seems like the worst punishment you could do to someone. Why? Because it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. Swimming, at least you're going somewhere. Treading water, you're not going anywhere. You're just not drowning. What do you teach a kid to do first? Tread water. Because once the kid knows how to tread water, they'll be fine. You could drop them anywhere, they'll be fine. Because they'll be able to tread until you throw them a lifeboat. Life is treading water. We don't have to have an end. Well, we do have a universal end game, Mashiach, and but that's God's sort of business. Our business is to run our machine. Our machine is to tread water, to live in a world that's actively trying to win me over. And remember that what makes me a human being is that I have a head, that I could think, and that I realize that it's not in the material pursuits. It's not in those things that I find purpose and I find meaning, and that reality lies. But again, when we look out into the world, we don't see that. And that's because of the tzimtzum. Because of the tzimtzum, because of the contraction, it's not visible, but it doesn't make it not true. It doesn't make it any less factual than if you would be able to see it. When the sun rises in the morning, nothing changes. It just, before the sun rose, you couldn't see anything, and now you could. But it's not like suddenly the trees came out because the sun rose. Last night there were no trees. I didn't see any trees. No, the trees are there, but the sun makes you see it. So now the Son of God, I didn't mean, well, that could be taken in many different ways. No pun intended. The light, the brilliant light of God is concealed. It's covered up. For us, we can't see it, and therefore the world looks dark. But it doesn't mean that reality changes because the world looks dark. Okay, so he's going to bring a metaphor for this from the literal Earth, from the globe. To illustrate this point, the bottom of 735. To illustrate this point, consider this material world. Even though the whole world is full of his glory, namely, not only with the minute glimmer of godliness, but with the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof, As it is written, do I not fill heaven and earth? Earth, says the Lord. So God is here in his entirety. Nevertheless, only very limited vitality of no more than the category of what is revealed in the inanimate and vegetable worlds is clothed within this world in the form of revealed influence. If you look at the earth, not at humans or animals that are sustained by the earth, but anything that's connected to the earth, what life forms are part of the earth globe, part of the earth's surface, inanimate and vegetative. Living are not part of the earth. Well, they may be in the earth, but they're not part. They can be separated from the earth. Yeah. So in Judaism, we speak of four, not three categories of life, but four: inanimate, vegetative, living, and human. Only the two lower levels of inanimate and vegetative, their life is seen in the earth. While all the light of the blessed Ein Sof, which fills the world itself in a concealed manner, is described as encompassing it, even though it actually pervades it, right? So it's in the earth. There can't be anything outside of God, but we just don't see it. All we see is to the level of vegetative, right? Because when you look at a tree, you see God. When you look at an animal, you see God in a different way. You see more, right? Because look, I mean, a tree is more, there's more hidden. You think an animal has more hidden, more batteries inside of him than a tree does, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more batteries there. Since its influence is no more revealed in it than it is revealed within the inanimate and vegetable worlds, but affects it in a hidden and concealed manner. Yeah. So this level that surrounds the world affects the world, but because it's in a hidden manner, we call it surrounding. And any influence of a concealed nature is referred to as encircling from above. For Alma de Iskasia, the hidden world is on a higher plane than Alma de Isgalia, the revealed world. Like we discussed last week, that a revealed world is a world in which the creations don't seem to be apart, don't seem to be connected to their source. They seem to be independent. Whereas in a concealed world, it's obvious that the creations are dependent on their source, right? In our physical reality, a revealed world is on top of Earth's surface. So animals and people, we live in a revealed way. We're seen in a revealed way. And because of that, we look independent from our source. We look as if we can be separate from the world. We can fly to space. We can go to Mars. Okay, once you go, you figure out you're pretty dependent on the Earth's atmosphere and on the oxygen we have here. But when you're here, you seem independent. That's a revealed world. That's a low level. The concealed world would seem to be a lower level because it's concealed, but no. In the concealed world, that's a higher level because in a concealed world, it's obvious that the creations are dependent on their source. And that's what we see in the ocean, in the sea. The sea is a concealed world. You can't see what's going on in there. But the creations of the sea know very well, and we do too, that you separate them from their source and it's done. They have no life. They're dependent on their source of life. So even though we can't see it here, we know that it's the truth. But it's a lower level. Okay. Let us make this more intelligible by means of an example. You know, I think I may yeah, okay, we'll do a little more, and then I think there's a video that I want to show you in the last 5 minutes or so. Let's make this intelligible by means of an example. The bottom of 736, yeah, top of 737. When a person forms an image in his mind of something that he has seen or sees, even though the entire body and essence of that thing, both its exterior and interior, and its very core, are completely mirrored in his mind and thought, for he has seen it or is seeing it in its entirety, this is expressed by saying that his mind encompasses that object completely. And just as in the mind's frame or reference, so too regarding the perspective of the visualized object. And that thing is enveloped by his mind and thought, but it is not encompassed in actual fact, only in the imagination of the man's thought and mind. Okay, so here obviously we have to know that this example is not going to be the same with God, because we are humans, so we do have some limitations, as we'll see. But so what's the idea? What's the Alter Rebbe trying to bring this, make it more intelligible? What's he trying to make more intelligible? The fact that you can use the term encompass, but you don't actually mean surrounding. So if I say, do you understand what we just spoke about? And you'll say, yeah. I say, yeah, but do you have a grasp on it? And you'll say, yeah. Really? You have a grasp on what I said? But we still use that term. Why? Because that's a term that we use when someone has a full, almost like a full body scan, a full perspective. If you don't have a complete understanding of what this thing is, you're not going to say I fully grasp it. You say I almost grasp it. You say I got it, but I don't have a full, I can't say it over to you. I don't have a full grasp on it. A full grasp means that you actually aren't around it. You're actually in every component of it. You have a visual, you understand the ins and outs and the crevices and every element of this object that you're grasping, so to speak, in your mind. And with a human being, it will always remain this way. There will always be a separation between the grasper and the grasped. Because at the end of the day, the thing you're grasping is not you, it's something outside of you. So there is the knowledge and there is the knower. And yet we use the term grasping. But at the same time, is what I'm saying, am I landing somewhere, or are you grasping what's going on here, or are we a little too theoretical, a little too abstract?
I'm trying to figure out something like, for instance, if if you've never seen an apple, you just know the outside, you don't know anything on the inside. And you take that apple and do you know everything that's inside? You cut it one way, you can see the seeds and a star formation. If you cut it a different way, you don't see that. So are we grasping the entire, either the core of the apple when we see it hanging on a tree? We think of it that way. Do we know it's really internal? Or are we just viewing it, how beautiful it is from the exterior?
So very good. So if You came over to me and you said, "You see this apple that I just grew on the tree? You've never had an apple like this. This apple's amazing thing." And I'll ask you, "Have you ever had an apple?" And you'll say, "No, but look at it."
Mhm.
I'll say, "Yeah, but how do you know what's inside of that?" Like, "I don't know, but look how beautiful it looks." Then I'll look at you and I'll say, you've no idea what you're talking about, right? You don't have a grasp on this apple, even though you're grasping it in your hand. You don't understand the apple. You can't explain the apple. And like you said, if you open it one way, you still have no clue about the apple because you only see two dimensions. You only see the two sides that you opened. You still don't really have a grasp. You have a grasp on the part of the apple you saw. You know that an apple can look beautiful, but you don't really have a grasp on the apple, right? However, once you've taken the apple to the lab, you've dissected it in every way. You've figured out its makeup, its content, you've eaten it, you've touched it, you've smelled it. You've never seen something so beautiful and exquisite in your life. Now you have a grasp on it, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't use that. You would look at your former self that said, "I got an apple," and you'd say, "Yeah, you were holding an apple. You don't get an apple."
Right.
When do we feel comfortable using the term, "I got an apple"? Only after we have 100% grasp on the apple. If there's anything that's missing, there's still something I'm missing. I still don't know this for a fact
Mhm.
because there's a part of it that I don't know. Maybe that's the poisonous part. Maybe that's the part that's going to ruin the whole trip. I don't know.
Okay. So I found myself thinking of Helen Keller,
Okay.
and she never had the ability to see. She's not like someone who was able to see and then lost
Mhm.
sight. She was blind from birth on. And she struggled so long before someone started trying to help her visualize. So in a way, what we're talking about is something similar, I suppose, because you're trying to visualize something you've never seen. You can't really touch it, can't feel it, but you're trying to understand it. So grasp.
So I want to say two things about that. Very good. The first thing is that I believe, and I don't know this for a fact, but this is what they say, that someone who's blind will actually develop much higher, much deeper senses or develop other senses much more because there is a human desire to know something. And part of that is vision. Someone who can't see feels like they're missing something. And my uncle, I think I mentioned maybe last time that he's in the hospital. Well, he's home now, but some sort of leukemia. And the reason he went to the hospital was because he started losing his eyesight. And and he was telling me while I visited him, he was telling me that the very first we make 17 blessings in the morning called the morning blessings, where we thank God for giving us the things that make us tick. The very first blessing is he opens my eyes that I could see. Because someone who can't, well, this is a foolish thing for me to say. So, but I don't know any other way of expressing it. So, but if there was one sense or one body part you don't want to lose, it's the eyes. Now, I get no one wants to lose the eyes. I get there are people that will say, "Oh, I wish I had this. I wish I." I'm not speaking. I'm saying for a regular person, I don't think we always think that. I don't think the average person will say that the one sense they don't want you to take away from them is sight. But if you think about it a little, the one thing you don't want to lose is sight. Because you can't move around. Okay. Without sight, you can't move around either, really. You can't do things with your hands. Okay. But without sight, your movements are limited too. Everything else gets limited by the lack of sight. And it's when someone is missing their sight that then they start to reveal in their other senses things that average people can never develop because sight takes care of it. So the sight does affect every other part, which is why we'll also use the term seeing something when we understand. When we understand something, truly we'll say, I see what you're saying. I don't hear, I say, listen, I hear what you're saying. You don't say, I see what you're saying, but I disagree. If you disagree, you don't see what he's saying. You hear what he's saying. If you see it visibly, if you can see what they're saying, then it makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you, you can see something that makes no sense to you. You could, but you almost don't believe yourself that you're seeing it. If you are sure you saw something, then you believe it because you saw it. There's certainty there. When we say that God surrounds the world, it sounds like we're trying to remove him from our world by saying that he surrounds it. He's too big to be here. He's too elite to be amongst us. Alter Rebbe is trying to hammer it in that when we see this term brought in Kabbalah and other places, that God surrounds, it doesn't mean he surrounds it in a removed way. It's just that to us it seems removed because we don't see it clearly. But it's here just the same. Because when God surrounds it, what does it mean? It means he's in every component of it. Otherwise, he wouldn't surround it. He wouldn't grasp it. Like we use the term surrounding. My brain has totally surrounded this idea. I've got it totally in here. It's all in my head. There's nothing missing. Now, in my head, it can only go one of two ways. Either I surround it or it surrounds me. It can't be both at the same time. Because we're two physical things. Because we're physical. But spiritually, you can have two things that become one.
Mhm.
So let's just read the next paragraph just to finish, and then we'll continue, resume next week. At the bottom of 737, God, however, so now we're comparing, we brought a metaphor from the person. God, however, of whom it is written, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, so that it is utterly impossible for us to grasp his thought process. His thoughts and his mind, which knows all created beings, encompasses each and every created thing, from its head, in other words, from its highest level, to its end, in other words, to its lowest level, and its inside and very core, all in actual reality. And not as with the thought of mortal men, where it's just used to describe something, but it's not actually in my head. With God, it's actually in reality one. God encompassing means that he's permeating, he's present in every part of this existence that he's surrounding. Because he's not limited to the physical. I want to present a clip here. I'm going to end the recording.